And the little drawing on the board, that's pretty much what we're going for. So there is something called an A-line bob, and there is something called a graduated A-line bob. So this is a graduated A-line bob. If this was a total, if it was this, and it's all at a 0, but it's in an angle where all of these strands are low, and it's just cut, the very bottom length is cut in an A-line, that would be an A-line bob. But because she's going to have layers here, and it's in an A-line, so it's a graduated A-line bob. Or graduated A-line. So that's what we're going to do on Michaela. We had our consultation, and we talked about, you can sit back, Michaela, are you comfortable? Mm-hmm. And we talked about the length and the layers and where she parts her hair. She says she always parts it on this side. If she always parts it on the side, I gave her the comb and I said, can you please part it for me? So she parted it where she always parts it. I'm going to cut it this way. But if she says, sometimes I flip it to the right, sometimes I flip it to the left, I'm going to cut it parted in the middle. Because if I cut this parted on the side, and I take this piece, and it does reach, so let's just say it reaches all the way down to her 0. And then one day she decides to part it in the middle, and she brings this over, it's going to be longer than the length. Her length might be to here, but this one strand will be longer because it's parted on the side. And so for it to travel all the way over here to make it a 0, it's going to be pretty long. If I part it in the middle and I bring it over, it's going to be longer than the rest. So that's why it's important that I ask the client first, how do you part your hair? The other thing that's important is I have to comb her hair and watch how it falls. Because can you see how there's some pieces a little bit longer than the others? Maybe that's because when it was cut, we brought it over to the side, we cut it with this guide, but then her hair wants to do this, for example. If her hair is going to do that by itself, it's going to look like the haircut is off. So I have to cut this in a way that wherever it falls, if there's a cowlick here and it's pushing it this way, and this piece is going to fall here, I can't cut it with this guide here. I've got to cut it with this guide here so that when it falls by itself, it looks even. So we're going to go through it. Michaela did say she wanted a little bit off the front length, so we do want to keep this very long, but it's a little too long now. Because we want the volume here, I'm going to use her head shape to help me get this cut. We all have our occipital bone, that's the protrusion, that's the piece that comes out the most. So I'm going to use that occipital bone to help me get this styled. If I follow her head shape, that's giving me this cut, no? That shape of the haircut in the back. So if I start my layers up here, the volume is going to start from here, and then she's got this occipital bone here that's going to throw it off. But if I use her head shape, it's going to help me enhance that haircut. And I'm going to get that look. Because right when I do this with my hand, you guys can see this angle right here. And that's what we're looking for, that angle there. So I'll use her head shape to help me. The other kind of problem sometimes we fall into is cowlicks at the bottom of the nape. I might think, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I get in there and I start cutting, but because of the cowlicks in the nape, it throws me off, like on yours when we did it the other day. So Mo's haircut, she's got a lot of cowlicks at the top, actually, that threw the way the bottom looked. So, you know, those are little things that we will consider and look at when we're doing our haircut. So I'm going to start what I think I'm going to do, and then, of course, I might adjust it depending on her hair. So do you see right here, these cowlicks are really, really strong, so I'm kind of combing it lightly, and I'm going to establish my guides from there. So, you guys can't see from here because I'm going to be on this side. So I will comb it down, and for a graduated A-line cut, you have to see the client's hairline. First of all, I'm going to ask her to look down. And I'm going to lift up and take a look at her hairline and see how high I can go. If I don't want to shave, or if the client doesn't want to shave, I can't go higher than her hairline. You see her hairline right here, how low it goes? So I can't go higher than that. She's got a little raised mole here, So I need to be careful. If I'm going to use a neck trimmer, I have to be careful around the raised mole, right? Not to hurt it. And I also have to be careful with my shears too. So that's something that I need to look at. So her hairline is pretty high up. Do you want it to go as high as I can?
Yeah.
So that's good. Okay, so I'm going to do that. So the way to determine that is by looking underneath, seeing how high I can go, and take it from there. And I can go pretty high on Michaela. So I'll start. If I can cut against her neck, I will. If it's longer than that, I have to pinch with my fingers, I will. But since here it's short enough, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'll start by establishing my guide. Again, I could always go shorter. So let's see where that takes me. Yeah, I could go higher. So you want to ask the client how dramatic they want it. Now you can tell by Michaela's color. We know Michaela. We know not that her personality is dramatic, but she likes the bold look. So she could wear it. But if I'm working on an older lady that works in an office, maybe I'm not going to go that crazy yet. Or maybe I will, but you want to take all that into consideration. Also, we need to bring down the sides. I couldn't have pinned the sides up and tried my A-line and then bring the sides down to continue it. I need to see my sides so I'll know exactly where I'm going to. So I can't pin that up. You know how sometimes we section it off and we divide it? I want to see it all. So I'm just kind of getting an idea. This might work, this might not work, but I'm just getting started.
So
Yeah?
is then cutting the straight line?
No, I'm cutting it an angle down. I'm not doing my layers yet, but I'm cutting down. Now here, I don't want to cut all this off, because if I cut all of this off, then how am I going to connect it to this long length? So let me just kind of get started by doing this. I don't know if you guys can see what's going on so far. Look straight, Michaela. Let's see something. I think I can go higher. Okay, look down again. So an A-line could be very sharp, where it's almost like, exactly an upside down A, where it's sharp. The center will be a triangle. Or it could be where it's a little bit rounded and then it comes down. And that's the way I think it looks better. Her mole is a little higher than where I'm working, so I'm okay here. I'm not worried about it. Now this side, okay, I did this side, I'm right-handed, and look at my hand is comfortable, I have room. But when I go to do this side, I have her shoulder in my way and I can't really get in there. And if I need to angle my hand this way, I might hurt her, because I'm cutting at her this way. So I need to find a position. Now this works for me. So find a position that works for you. I want my shears to be flat against her neck, and I'm just going to cut backwards, kind of. And as I'm cutting, I'm standing in the middle and I'm looking to see that my arch is even. So I already cut this side. The first side is easy. It's the second side to match the first side that gets a little trickier. So and I want to make sure that I'm centered. I want to watch the way her hair falls. And every time you comb it, it's going to look a little bit different because the strands move around. Don't worry about it. Remember, this is going to be layered. It's going to be graduated. So if I don't have a beautiful, clean, if all my layers, what are those haircuts called? The precision haircuts, like the Vidal Sassoon haircuts. If she was gonna wear a straight zero, yeah, I would have to be precise, really precise, on even the pieces that are moving around. But on her, all these top strands are gonna be layered. And sometimes, when you do your zero, it looks great, but even on Michaela's, when I pinched it down, it was nice and even. But when I lifted the weight off of it, she's got a few cowlicks that'll move it around. And when it moves it around, it's gonna make my haircut look off. Like with yours, Mo, we had to flat iron yours to see what it's gonna look like. So don't pay too much, don't kill yourself trying to make this line perfect, because as you layer, things kind of change. See, like this, it just pops right out. Things will change, and it throws your zero off. When I held it down, it was nice. Now it's not so nice. So I'll get the overall picture going, and then I'll work on perfecting it. So my back is done. Now I need to go to the front. Okay, you could look straight, Michaela. And I need to determine the zero length. We already talked, and she said she wants to cut almost an inch off the front. So I'll take a piece right in the front. Give myself a little snip, about an inch. That's going to be my length guide. And then I'll come over to this side. Do the same. But if I'm here behind her and there's a mirror in front of me, I'll pinch this, look in the mirror, pinch this, look in the mirror, and kind of tell me where I should cut, and then come over and cut it. But I'm going to stand in front of her because I don't have a mirror. So when you want to do this, you bring them to the center it in her with her face, and then give yourself a little snip there. I don't know if you guys can see that. And then go to the mirror and double check yourself. Okay, so that's okay for me now. Now I'll start to connect. I want the hair to fall like it wants to fall, and I will connect my zero. Because her shoulder's in the way, if I try to cut my zero here, am I elevating this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want to elevate. Remember in the back how I combed it against her neck? I got a true zero. So, how am I going to do this?
Turn her head.
Exactly. Ask her to look that way. Can you look? There you go. And so now when I do my zero, I could stay at a true zero. I can't hold all of this hair, but I can point my finger in the right direction. Here's my guide. I only have one guide. So if this is my guide and I hold my finger straight, what's going to happen?
Oh dear.
It's too short. I'll cut the whole side off. So I need to point my finger in the right direction. This is my goal. So I could point it there. There's my front guide. Now I'm able to pinch and get a little closer. There we go. Now I'm able to connect. Can you look more? Yeah. Sorry, Mrs. Evans.
You're fine.
Ooh, that was my stomach. Okay, I'm starting to get that there. Same on this side. That way. So I can't hold it all, but I'll hold my finger in the right direction. What about the ear? Somebody asked me that the other day. Do I have to loosen up for the ear? If I was doing not a graduated bob, a real true zero bob, yes, I might loosen up the hair a little bit here to give me a straight line at the bottom. I can't hold all that, so I can just cut and clean up in a minute. She's got some earrings, a lot of earrings. I'm not going to ask her to take them all off, but I will be careful when I'm working around the ear. Usually I'll comb down. As soon as I feel the ear, then I'll lift up. That way I can untangle the strands that are in there. Okay, Now I'll start with my layers. So I need to establish a length here. Let's see, how does this piece fall? Again, I'm going with her head shape. So I'll take a strand and let's say if I cut it about that much, I think that's going to be where I want it to fall, where the occipital is. So just give myself a guide. Let's try this much and see what happens. You see how it's a little long? She wants volume. Let's go a little bit shorter. Give myself a bigger guide so you guys can see. Yeah, I think that's good. Because she said she wanted volume. I could always go shorter, but I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to have what is called a stationary guide. I'm going to establish a guide right here, and I'm not going to move my fingers. Every section that I bring, I'm going to bring back to this area. So do you see my section where my guide is going to be? That's where my fingers are going to be throughout the whole haircut. I'll bring even the front back to that section to cut it so that it gets longer and longer and longer. So let me go ahead and establish my guide. I'll look for my top guide, look for my bottom guide. If I can't see it, don't cut. There it is there. But I can't hold all this hair. I could hold it in the right direction. Here's my top guide. I see it there. I'm pointing these down. And remember, right now I'm just establishing my guide. Sorry, I'm going to stand on this side because of my finger position. So I'm trying to keep the top piece the longest, and everything else is going to get shorter and shorter as I get to the bottom. And I am just establishing my guide. I'm not done. I could take a look at it and decide maybe that I want it shorter. But I think that's okay. It's kind of starting to hug in there. So now every section that I pick up, I'm going to go ahead and cut the sides out though. So I am dragging the hair back to the center and I am following my guides. You could see my fingertip guide and you can see my knuckle guide.
Is that 90 degree?
90 degree, good question. 90 degree means you're pulling that strand straight from where it rose. So 90 degrees means that the root is held at a 90 degree angle, a right angle. Right here, this strand might be a right angle, but this strand is not. Let me throw it on the board. So if this is the sun, or the head, for me to hold it at a 90 degree angle means that the root is coming out of the head in a right angle, a complete right angle, like a corner. So that strand that I'm working on here is at a 90. But the one coming from the root is not at a 90, right? Because look, the angle that it's coming out of, this, looks different than this angle. So the only haircut that's a true 90 all over is when you put your guard on your clipper and you go around the head with the guard. That's the only one where every single strand is going to be, let's say you put a number 4 or whatever number and it's an inch long, then every single strand on the head is going to be 1 inch long. That's the only true 90. Crew cut with the clipper. So this one is not going to be a full true 90. These strands right here may be at a 90, but then this one's not, this one's not, this one's not, this one's not. You know, so we can't say. Not many haircuts are one thing. Not many haircuts are a true 45 all the way through or a true 90 all the way through. They are all combinations of different angles. Now I could do this haircut with a razor too. But Michaela's hair is fine to begin with, and usually razor haircuts on fine bleached hair are not recommended because they cut the ends in an angle, and it makes the ends a little weaker. And on fine hair, we're already saying it's fragile, so we don't want to make them even more fragile. Okay, so I don't know if you guys could see, but I could see my top and bottom guide. And I'm starting to see the haircut. Let me just do this side and I'll turn her. I want to be careful though when I get to certain areas. You see, this is my guide for my zero, but if I bring this over here, it might tell me, this guide will tell me to cut it shorter. If I cut it shorter, I'll have a hole right here. So when I'm doing this area here, I will drop my zero and only layer whatever I'm going to bring over there. That way I don't ruin my A-line zero. Top I'm not worried about. It's the bottom that I'm worried about, that I might make a hole in it. I see my top, my fingertip, and my knuckle guide. And I'm even going to leave it a little longer. Yeah, I'm using this guide. If you would like to section this off, you can. If it's too much hair for you to hold, it's better to section. That way you see very clearly what you're doing. Okay, starting to come together. I want you to see the angle on this side, which is what we're looking for, this angle here. You see how her head shape is helping that come together and come in. So I'm using her head shape. So I'll work on that a little bit more, but that's what we're looking for. As you're working, keep looking at what you're doing. If it's not looking right, you might need to go shorter on the layers. You know, don't waste your time to do the whole haircut and then realize. Okay, yeah, I'm liking the way this is looking. So let me just finish the back, and then I'll show you how to do the front. Because I'm bringing everything to the center, do you see how even the layers are in an A-line? You see how the layers up here are in an angle too? Not just the zero, this, because I'm dragging everything over, so every strand gets, this is the shortest piece. This is longer, 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 so it'll bring me to my front. Okay, I'm going to do the other side. And I'm watching the way the crown is falling. And she wants volume, and she's got some cowlicks right here that are going to help her get that volume out naturally. So that's a good thing. Being careful at the zero not to pick up too much down here. Let it fall. I could always clean it up later. Some hairdressers will just do this part first and then do the zero at the end, because it always seems to change when you're doing this kind of a haircut because of cowlicks and things. I want to see if I am balanced in the back, if the layers look like they're balanced, before I move on to the sides. So I'll pick up my layers and bring them to the center. This side is wetter, than this side, so it's laying down, so I do want to pick it up and see. I think I'm okay there. Okay, so now for how am I going to connect this to this? How am I going to make these layers come? Because if I bring even the side back, look how much my guide is telling me to cut. So how am I going to get that to blend? So the best way to do it is to take a piece on top, because then I'm not going to ruin my weight line, and I'm going to take a piece of my guide right here, and I might do this with the razor. On somebody else I might, but with her I'm going to do it with the shears. So what I'm doing, do you see my guide here and the angle that it's coming in? So I'll comb it back. This is, now I'm making a guide for my side. I'll comb it back and I'm going to try to cut that to that. So I can do it this way. Here's my front guide. And here's my guide from the side of the back. So I can do this. Let me clean it up. Or I can cut from this way. So I'm giving myself a guide on top. Clean it up. If Michaela had really thick hair, I might point cut that. So if a client has thick hair, you want to make it look thinner for movement. If a client has fine hair, you don't want to point cut it necessarily because it's already going to have more movement. But you can still play it by ear. So that gave me a guide on top, so I will know how much to cut. So now even if I took sections that are going to connect me from the top to the bottom, I will drop my 0 and I'm just going to layer whatever is there. So there's my top guide. I don't know if you guys could see that. Here's my bottom guide. And so I'll just take it from there. Sorry, Mrs. Amy. Do the same on this section. Drop my 0, enough of the 0 so I don't ruin the shape. I will comb it back and blend from the top guide to the bottom guide. No problem. I could always bring it shorter because I don't know how it's going to fall. You know, when you're cutting a hair style like this, you're actually styling it with your shears. So let's say this side is almost done. Can you see here what's happening underneath from the cowlicks that are underneath here? So that's something that I will work on at the end. But it's starting to come together. I don't know what these are, and so I'll take a look at those and I will clean it up at the end here. I'm going to do the same on this side. This was my guide, so I will do the same thing for this side. She has bangs, so I have to be careful not to use the bangs as my guide. I'll get a piece from the back. So basically, if I hold it up and I held it back, do you see those short pieces? Those are her bangs right here where my thumb is. I don't want those. I want the long piece, so I'm going to hold it this way. And I will start my shears where the guide is, which is right here. There's my guide. And I'm just going to come and slither and cut because there was a big extreme difference from the front, from the back to the front. So I couldn't pinch it with my fingers and cut it all the way through. So I will just let my guide fall. I see my guide and I'm just going to kind of skim through. That became my guide on top. So I'll take that, drop the 0. I still want to comb it back. Here's my top guide and my bottom guide. Top guide. And the last section.
That's law number front is layer 2, yeah?
Yeah, in the front she has some bangs already. We're gonna trim them also. Okay. And now I'm gonna start checking the haircut, taking a look and seeing what needs to be done. So here I see there's some weight. Let me go ahead and clean that up. There it is there. Because I dropped my zero. Maybe I dropped too much of my zero. I also can see now what's happening with her zero, her weight line, so I can clean that up. Try to show you guys. So I combed it down and I just cleaned up a little bit in the middle there. But here, because of her neck and her shoulder or whatever's happening here, it's kind of flipping up. I want to take that a little higher. So now I'm cleaning up so that it could be not styled by itself, but easier for Michaela to style it. So I'm going to look and see how her hair is reacting to this haircut and clean it up according to that. Like this weight line is going to flip right up right here. So I got rid of it. That way it's not flipping up anymore. Without affecting the front length, she's got a cowlick that wants to flip it up. If I know, if we've already talked, like the haircut, the picture she showed me was all tucked under. So I'm trying to make this tuck under too. So if she's got a cowlick that's going to flip up, I might go higher just to cut it off, eliminate the problem. Because no matter how much she tries to blow dry it, it's still going to flip up. Because the root of this piece flipping up is not the ends, it's the cowlick that's under here that's making it flip up that way. And sometimes, if the client has a really low hairline and it's got a strong cowlick, sometimes you can go under and just see this piece right here that's growing all the way to my right, let's say. I can just take my peanut and clip all that off because all that is pushing her hair to do one thing. And if I shave that off, this part, and I lay this over it, it's not going to show that it's shaved off, but it's going to eliminate that problem of it pushing the hair over. So don't be afraid to go under and remove whatever you think is the problem if it's not going to show. The haircut she showed me also wasn't very piecey. It was kind of thick. You know, it wasn't real fringy. So I want to keep that in mind too when I'm doing my zero or when I'm doing my layers. Like for example, this side, you can kind of see it's not looking real piecey and it's clean, smooth. And I'm liking this side. Are you looking straight? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe a little bit long here. Can you see how it's not doing what maybe we want it to do? Of course she's going to style it, but I can make it easier for her if I eliminate certain things. So watch the way the hair is falling. Can you look that way? This piece, do you see where this is falling and how this is flipping over? I want to take that a little sharper right here.
So is that good that you checked after blow dry?
Yes, absolutely, yes. If your client, you know she's going to blow dry it or she's going to flat iron it each time, yes. But what if she says, I don't want to blow dry it? Then yes, I need to do all of my checking now. But if she says, yeah, I'm going to flat iron it every single morning, maybe she has curly hair naturally, and she's going to flat iron it every morning, then yes, I can flat iron it for her, which is exactly what we did with Mo the other day. And I would have pumped my chair up to make it more comfortable for me. I'm trying to make it not, where you guys could see it. Okay, I think if I had a mirror, it would be easier for me so I can see the balance in the front. Of course, it's parted on the side, so it's not going to be necessarily balanced, but at least the length here. I could take a look in the mirror and take a look and see if I'm okay. And now we're going to do her bangs. You wanted it, when it combs over, to fall next to your eye?
Yeah.
Okay. And another question on bangs. Do I want a Cleopatra bang where it's straight across and then the length? Or do we want it to kind of go into the length? How do you want it?
Well, when I blow dry it, I like flip it back
Uh-huh. Which means I want some layers.
so it looks kind of feathered.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to layer it, but I'm going to bring it down. Because if she says I want like a Cleopatra, a bi-level, where it's just straight across and then the bottom, I would do it differently. Let's say she said she wanted to do that. So I would take, let's say she said I want a bi-level. I would take a section. She's a side part. So I would take a section this way, gather it to the center, and just cut it straight across. And then when it goes, it'll go. But that's not what she wants. So I know that she's got a little wave in her hair, and I know she wants it to fall on the side of her eye or so. So I'll make it a little longer than I think. Always I do a little longer than I think. So I'll go a little longer than the side of the eye. And you can see it was already cut this way. It's cutting down at an angle. I'm going to do this with my shears. But when I do that, I'm doing this and sliding them down, not closing them all the way. So I'll start here, point my shears down, and I will open and close as I'm sliding down. So I'm making little steps, tiny little steps. I really don't want to cut off this long piece, so I have to be careful not to cut it off. So I'll cut to it, but not cut it off at all. There it is there. She also said she wanted it to feather. So if she wants it to feather, I want to make it easier for her to feather it. So I'll layer this part a little bit more. So I'll pick up her bangs. And I don't want to take this long piece because that might not belong there. I'll take this piece here and I'm going to point cut, so that she could have that extra movement. Okay, Michaela. You know, right here, I'm seeing that it's a little heavy, so I'm going to pick that up, drop my zero, and I want movement. It's too heavy in the front, I think, so I'm just going to go in, and I can texturize with the thinning shears, so I can open and close, and I'm going to kind of weave some off, or I can do a little bit of notching with my shears, so I could just open a little bit, and cut out of it. Can you guys see what I did there? Did you guys see that? So I'll do another piece. So I'll just take my shears, open them a little bit, and just notch a little bit out. So I cut a few pieces long, shorter. Yeah, that lightened up the load a little bit. This piece feels like it's going to fall back here, not forward. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to notch some out of here. Michaela, I'm gonna give you a mirror. I'm gonna let you look at it, and then maybe later we'll blow dry it and I can look at it again. But I want you to see what's going on so far so you can tell me if it's short enough, how your veins are. Here, let me go to that mirror and I'll bring you another one.
Yeah, that's good.
When we blow dry, we'll check in here too, so I can totally take a look at it. Okay.
Thank you, Miss Laham.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We'll see how it looks.
This is all she cut. Whoa,
It was a lot that I cut off. She's
Yeah.
got a lot of hair.
looks great, Michaela.
Okay. You want to blow dry it? You want me to